Hey
Go.
everybody.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So I think there are about as many ways as there are like to do things as there are organizations to do them, right? Sharing leader knowledge amongst ourselves is why we come together every month. So today Faith is here to share her perspective of Christ the King Church Food Share and Farm, if I'm saying that right, on cultivating her distribution partners. And we hope this is interesting and informative. Um, I am going to make a couple of quick announcements before we get started here. Opening chat so I can drop something in. Um, so we're always looking for folks who are willing to share their expertise on Gleaner related topics and help grow that gleaning movement and the collective knowledge of gleaners in Washington State. So if you are interested in being part of one of the monthly meetings, I just pasted something in the chat. There's a kind of sign up form with a bunch of months laid out throughout the year with topics. And if you're interested, please sign up. Um, and then next month's meeting in April, it's going to be really interesting collaboration between Washington Gleaning Network and Farm to Food Pantry program this month. So it really applies, the topic this month really applies to like everyone in our field. So it's wearing many hats. We all wear a lot of hats in our jobs, and this meeting is a place to discuss the way we kind of balance and organize it all in our work. And it will take place on April 17th, and a calendar invite will go out to all of you shortly. So keep an eye out for that. Um, so next announcement, you may have received an email about the 2025 cleaning census AGO is conducting with gleaners throughout the country. They're gathering information. They're talking to about like 150 cleaning organizations from coast to coast throughout the country with a quick online survey and a follow-up conversation. And I'll post some details in the chat here. So please participate in that. Let your voice be heard to grow the gleaning movement throughout the country. And those who participate are also eligible to be part of a paid SARE grant measurement study. Also details on that in the chat here. All of that information will be in the upcoming newsletter as well. So hopefully this pace. Oh no, it's telling me it's too many words. Sorry, bear with me for 1 second. Paste and paste. Okay. And I will be there representing Washington Gleaning Network and Harvest Against Hunger. So if you're able to go, let me know. There's an opportunity to be part of a short 20-minute panel with me representing Washington State Gleaners, and I would love to see you there. The last announcement I have, the first phase of the Gleaner Guides project is a go. You may have heard us talk about this a little bit. This is your chance to share your hard-earned expertise with your community of gleaners. The driving theory is that most gleaning organizations have some kind of documents that they might share with new hires and staff detailing how to run their gleaning programs. So the goal of this project is to kind of compile this information into a shared resource for gleaners throughout Washington State. So beginning next month, we're going to be working with students from University of Washington's Food Systems program, and we'll be kicking off this project. So they'll be reaching out to all of you in the network to request some documents. So keep an eye out for that as well. So that's all the announcements from my end, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Faith.
Hello. Can everybody hear me okay? I hope so.
We can.
I am going to share my screen, so just hang on a second while I get there. Um, Hopefully that everybody see that okay?
Yes. Oh,
Perfect.
great picture.
That's my veggie sweatshirt that I found at some store, and I was like, I have to have this as a veggie person. So my name is Faith Whaley. I have been in this position for 7 years now. I am the director of the Christ the King Food Share and Farm. We are an organization that has about a 4-acre farm that we grew vegetables on. Last year, I think we hit 120,000 pounds of fresh food that we distributed. And then we also have a food share program that we collect donated goods from local businesses and do a thing called Item of the Month with congregation members and anybody that wants to participate. So people donate non-perishables. And then we also have our gleaning program. So I'm going to try, in this presentation, you'll see I have the big picture of how we do stuff because it is very kind of, it's different, but I have lots of ideas about how you could take this and possibly just like when I was putting the presentation together, I was like, if we just had our gleaning program, how might I tweak this so that it would work similarly or better for that program? So that's a little bit about us. We are up in Whatcom County, so we predominantly glean berries, which is something that our partners and stuff are always looking for. That's not something you typically find in a food bank. And so we do a lot of berries, and then we have a local farmer where we get some corn and carrots, and then also potatoes. So hang on. Now I got to figure out how to go to the next slide because it's not working how it normally does. There we go. Okay. So who are our partners? These are all of our partners. As of last year, we currently have 2 to 3 more that we possibly might add this year. I'll talk more about how we do that process in a few minutes as we work through this. So we work with lots of different organizations. We work with typical food banks, which a lot of people think of, but we also have, like Lydia places a local shelter for mothers and children. We have the Community Resource Center that we work with in Ferndale, which is close to us. We have some different grassroots, different organizations that set up in parking lots and give out food there. We also work with several housing facilities. So we'll bring them food and they'll just put it in their community rooms for people to grab. So when you're thinking about partners, you don't always have to think of the most obvious answers. If the ones that feel most obvious aren't able to work with you, there's usually always people that are looking for food in one way or another. So like last year, we partnered with Mercy Housing. We had been doing one of their locations for a few years, but we ended up expanding it to doing 5 different apartment buildings. And we would just drop food off in their community room and they'd have their person on staff there put it out and then people would shop it. This year, we're going to change a little bit. We might pull back on some of those locations because of the changing need in this area. And then we are going to, but some of them, like the seniors, because they have accessibility issues, we're definitely going to keep doing some of them. So I think the biggest thing for me is when you're looking for partners, don't always just feel like if you've reached out to your 1 or 2 local, we have a lot of food banks in this area, in this county. I think there's at least 13 plus that are specifically food banks. But if you live in a small rural area that only has 1 or 2, you don't have to limit yourself to, if they can't work with you, then where do you take food? There's lots of different places to do that. So how do we select our partners? We have 32 as of last year. Like I said, we're adding a few more this year. This next few slides are things that I have always lived in my brain, but actually this is the first time that we've written them out. And so it's kind of interesting. This year we'll be walking through this, but so I'm going to talk a little bit in how I think this works or has worked in my head for the last year, but this year will be the first year we're going to present this to a lot of our partners. And so we, like I said, work with lots of different organizations. And so everyone has to follow this criteria or fit into this criteria to work with us. And then from there, if they pass all of these or work through all these criterias, then we put them into a tier, which I'll talk to about in a second. So something that's really important to us, we are a Christian organization. So we do not say that you have to be a Christian organization. You just have to be respectful of what we believe. And we are in no way I ever show up to any partner and like, I don't know, preach at them or anything. So which is always actually a concern of a lot of our partners. But we just say, if you respect us, then we're good to go. That's pretty simple usually. And then culturally fit, do they fit within the system that we have? And how is their culture viability? Is there any, like when I meet with them, is there any concerns I have about them being around for a while? In the work that I do, this is mirrored to one that our church does, because our church does partnerships also in different categories. They are a lot more concerned about this because it takes we're a very large church, so getting us to move the big ship into systems is a lot more important. For us, it is important that they're stable and they have good health, not physically necessarily, but like that. We've worked with organizations in the past who have been great, but then like my volunteers show up and they're getting yelled at by their volunteers, and I'm like, this is not a great healthy place for us to continue partnering. So we've had to say no to some people over this specific one before. Are they mutual? So can we work together to both accomplish our goals? So most of the people we work with, their goal is to feed people, and we have food, so it's pretty easy to put that together. But one thing that's really important to our organization is that if we come to you and we have just had a blueberry glean and we have 1,000,000 blueberries, that if you feel like you can only take 100 blueberries, I'm just using weird numbers, but then I'm going to look at you and be like, will you please take 200 and be creative in how you give those out? Blueberries is a weird one to use because everybody would take as many as they could get. But when we have at our farm, every year, there's a vegetable that no matter if we cut the amount of plants in half, it produces twice as much. I don't understand the math. It just is the weird thing in farming. And so one year we had bell peppers coming out everywhere. We would think we'd have 10 to 12 crates and show up and there's 50 crates. Like we could never guess how much there was, and it was always way more. And so we definitely told people like, hey, give away as many peppers as you possibly can in your situation because we have more that are coming. So that's kind of how they help us accomplish our goal, is that no food was wasted, which goes into the gleaning stuff as great as it can. And then capacity. So each year we have to decide how much capacity we have. And so then we get to decide how people fit into that. Does that all make sense? Is there any questions yet? If not, I'll keep moving. Perfect. So, and you guys can feel free to interrupt me at any point if you have a specific question, or we'll take questions at the end for sure. So how do we specifically select partners? Once they've gone through that criteria, and I meet with them, and I'll go through exactly how our logistics of getting to meet with partners and stuff go in a bit. But we put them into different tiers. So this is the first year that I'm using these words for this, but it's, like I said, always been in my brain. So once we select our partners, we then decide where do they fit in the tier. And so then they will then know how much food they could expect from us. And so full season means we're going to serve you all season as much as we can. You're the first to come on, the last to go off. We do have 2 partners that get food from us year round. Obviously, in winter months, it's very little, but we do plant lettuce and some other things in one of our greenhouses. And so it takes, I don't know, 2.5 months to grow lettuce when it usually takes 6 weeks in the summer. And so they get a little bit of lettuce. And then we also have some non-perishables and bread that we donate to them each week or as we have it. Mid-season is kind of the second group to come on. and they're also a priority. So they get as much as they can during that season. And then there's people that are served only during like the super high season when we're pulling 3 to 7,000 pounds of food out of the ground at one time. And so some organizations literally are only open that. We have a couple partners we work with who come to literally serve migrant populations. So they literally open in June and they close in, I think, the end of August, and then they're gone. And so we definitely put them in high season because that's all they're open. Other people, it's literally they have other options for food. And so we want to prioritize ones that don't have as many options. And then surplus, it's kind of like what I was talking about with the green peppers. If we have a ton of them, we'll call random people and be like, will you please take this from us? And usually it's always yes. And then we also have a group of people who do one-off projects with us. We have a local group who does the community meals. So when they need vegetables or whatever for their community meals, they'll reach out and then we just say yes or no based on what we have available. And so that's kind of the project based. This one is obviously a lot more because we have the farm. This is a lot more usable for us, but in a gleaning situation is probably not as usable because you never know what's coming and you never know what's going and how often are you going to have stuff. So I included our non-perishable tiers because I think some of them could be tweaked or renamed in a way that would help a gleaning program kind of prioritize their partners. So we have a thing that we call item of the month. And so in our world, the item of the month people are the ones who we are prioritizing. So like we're most tightly partnered with these people in non-perishable world. And so we are saying you are going to be our first call because it's item of the month. That's, they each get a month, but you're going to be our first call. You're our top priority. And then you go into like people who you have on call that if your first person can't take it, that there's other places to take it. And so we kind of just work through that in our non-perishable tiers. But I think if we had done just gleaning, this is more how we would do it top priority, and then lower priorities as you move through the things and just have people that will for sure. Like we always know Bellingham Food Bank, which is the largest food bank in our area. And honestly, they're the largest in the state and pushing the largest in the nation in growth right now. They will always say yes. No matter what I call them with, they will always say yes. And so we know that, but they're the largest and they have a lot more options to get things than some other people do. So they're usually our surplus people. But with their growth, that's actually changing recently. So yeah, so I hope that makes sense. One of the things Sarah asked is like, what is our incentives for partners to work with us? Honestly, I hadn't really thought about that a whole lot until she put that in there. And I was like, that's kind of interesting to think about. But really our partners, their thing is food is expensive. I think I was talking to Bellingham Food Bank and they said they spent over $1 million on fresh produce last year. It could be even more than that. I'm not sure. But because we're growing and gleaning food and we give it to them for free, that is a huge incentive for them because that means they can supply their peeps with more food. I also have a huge community. We are completely volunteer ran. I'm the only paid staff for this organization. And so we have a large group of people that are willing to rally at crazy things. One crazy opportunity that just presented itself with us. I don't know if in your communities you guys do a postal worker drive. It's a nationwide thing. Bellingham Food Bank and the local Bellingham food group or postal workers decided to give us a call and see if we would be willing to sort the food they collect. It's typically about 70,000 pounds of non-perishable food. And so we have a group of 250 volunteers for a week that will sort all that food. It typically takes Bellingham Food Bank about almost 6 months or longer to sort that, and we're going to have it done for them and ready to be put in their clients' hands within a week. So that is a huge incentive for people to work with us. We just have people who are willing to do stuff. I have another partner who reached out and she's like, I was just talking with her yesterday and she's like, my staff is just going through the ringer. And I think that's probably the truth for a lot of organizations right now with the climate and all the stuff that's going on. And so it's become one of my number one priorities next week to figure out a way to just either show up with some goodies or something just to give them a bright light in the midst of chaos and a lot of pressure that they're feeling. We also deliver. We purchased a van, which is down there in the bottom corner in the picture. So it's really easy for them. Our thing is we want to make it as simple for them, even if that makes it super complicated for us. And that's just a stance we've taken. So it makes it really easy on them, which makes it a lot easier for them to partner back with us. And obviously when stuff's gleaned, it's rescued, and that just makes everyone feel better. So how do we pick, or how do we figure out, this is going to kind of go into the nitty-gritties of planning for the year, and how do we take our partners that we've now selected and categorized, and how do we then turn that into actually distributing to them. So every year, next month, April is always my meet with all the partner month. And so I send out a spreadsheet and just pretty much tell them, like, I'd love to connect with you this year. And I just schedule chunks of time and they get to plop their name into whatever time works best for them. And so we go out and we just chat with them. For me, it's really checking in to see how they're doing. And to see what the need is. We all know need is constantly changing, and the grants that people are given, sometimes I go to partners and they're like, oh, we were able to secure a huge grant to purchase food from a local farm. So I know in the past years we've needed tons of tomatoes from you, but this year we have, in this month we won't need any because we're purchasing them. And so that helps us know, don't call them with tomatoes because they have plenty. We always, we have a sheet that I call our maximum and minimum sheet. And so it lists out all of the items that we have available. And I ask them to go through and say, like, how many crates or how many pounds of this item could you receive? Minimum. So like if I show up to a food bank that serves 300 people and I have 2 bags of blueberries, that doesn't help you. But if I took that same 2 bags of blueberries and took it to a local apartment building or to a shelter or to we just are partnering with a childcare center, like they could put that into a meal and it could be super helpful for them. And so that's kind of like what I like to know is, like, what is your minimum and then what is your maximum? If I showed up with 100 crates of green peppers, could you get rid of them? Or is that going to be too much of a burden for you? This helps our volunteer coordinator know when we have a lot of something or a little of something, where is the best place to decide to send that? Or who is he going to reach out to see what he can do? And then we set up a plan. And the next slide is our process of how do we decide from the time we get the food into how do we distribute. So like I said, we also have the farm. So we have a lot of partners and we are moving a lot of food. In July, August, September, we're moving probably 3,000 to 6,000 pounds a week. And so it's a lot to keep track of. In a gleaning situation, we are not moving that much food. We typically take our gleaning and add it into our distribution that's already getting sent out. But in thinking about, like I said before, if this was just a gleaning organization, I think I would actually set it up very similarly. This is actually a screenshot of our schedule. You can see that we have all of the different items that we have available on the side. Actually, some of these are the gleaned items that we typically have. And then we go across the top and it talks about when we meet with our partners, we ask them what days are staff available? Are they able to receive? Programs don't like receiving food while they're trying to distribute food. It's really difficult for them. So we ask them how many or what days work good for you and what times. We kind of set up a schedule. And so that's kind of what this is. So on Mondays, these are the places we go. The bolded people are people that pick up. If you're not familiar with this area, Point Roberts, you have to go through 2 borders to get to. And so they're already coming down here. And so they're like, why would we have you spend 3 to 4 hours of your time to bring us food? We're already down there. We'll just swing by and pick up. And some of the other programs, it just works better for them to pick up. And so we let them pick up and we just know the days that they're available to pick up. And then, so once we get food, we can then pluck it into this and decide how much of stuff is going to each partner. And so we also have drivers scheduled, which for a smaller thing that's not quite as often, we probably would just have a rotating or a group of drivers, or you could have drivers during our winter time. We have a couple of drivers who we call on or off each time. We have a Tuesday and a Wednesday driver. And so we tell them each week, like, we have something for you to deliver, or we don't need you this week. And so that helps them plan so that it's easier to deliver. But if you have staff people that do deliveries, that works well too. And I think each partner is very different. So it could depend on what they need. Some people like to come and pick stuff up. So, sorry, I'm referencing my note to make sure I told you all. Yeah, so at the top, you'll see there's a number and it says number of crates. So based on the size of the program, this is a way that while our volunteer is going through, he can kind of gauge how big they are. And then based the amount of food that he wants to give to them based on the size that they are. So like Point Roberts, we never want to give them more than 15 crates, even if it's all mixed vegetables, because they just have a smaller group of people that come. Their client base is a lot smaller since they live on a little peninsula. And then there's places like Nooksack Food Bank and Foothills Food Bank and Salvation Army who serve hundreds and hundreds of families each week. And so they can take a lot more. So the next slide is kind of once we have our guesstimates, you'll see the blue on the side where it says best guess of how many crates we will have of each of those items. Our volunteer driver or volunteer coordinator goes through and decides how much of that gets distributed to each person. Like I said, with the gleaning thing, it might just be blueberries this week. And so you could just say, you know, we think we're going to have 100 pounds of blueberries. So, you know, are we going to take 50 pounds to this person, 50 pounds to this person because we have 2 smaller locations, or are we going to take all 100 to a larger location? So that's kind of how we process all of our stuff through that system. And then once we decide where stuff is going, this is how our people sort it. So on the left is a picture of all of our food being sorted by partner. Our volunteer coordinator or volunteer person who sorts out and does that chart, then writes them on these whiteboards. And then people, as they bring in produce from the out in the field, they bring it into this area and we stage it based on partners so that our delivery drivers know, and everything's color coded to help with figuring all that out because it's a lot of moving parts. And so that's kind of how we stage that. And then on the right, you can see our van loaded with food to go out. And then, like I said, I took this and kind of went through like how you could tweak what we do to fit your organization. So one is find out what your local organization's needs or wants or the ability to accept food. So some places are really regimented, or people that are packing boxes or stuff like that, they need food by this day, by Monday, or it would have to sit in a fridge all weekend before they repack on Monday. So just kind of knowing what your organizations need will really help in the quick decision making that we have to make once we are harvesting food, and needing to know where it needs to go. Um, you can make a schedule or a chart so you know where food can go at all times. So if I get a phone call and they're saying, which happens quite often with our gleaning program, like we have this apple tree in our backyard, it has to get gleaned, next week, or by Tuesday. And you're like, okay, so then we send out people to go glean it. They come back with the food. We know where we're going on Wednesday, so we can say, will you please pack them in the crates and locate them in the area so that our Wednesday driver knows where to pick them up. Um, Estimating is a great thing, as good as it can get. Like I said, we always never quite estimate right on the money. We at the farm are always over under, but if we have somewhere to start with, it really helps in figuring out what each person is getting. And then if you want, like if I always think, depending on how much you're gleaning, it's great to have tiers, or like, here's who we're predominantly supporting, but hey, we have these other 3 or 4 partners in our back pocket if we're just, I can only imagine in in some organizations, or I think of like on the in Eastern Washington with apples, like you probably all are getting tons of apples, but hey, if you knew like, here's our 2 or 3 top people we're gonna serve with apples, but oh my goodness, everyone has apples. Well, is there any, children's uh places, daycare centers that could take them? Or is there, places that you wouldn't think of, apartment buildings, different things that may not be the ones going to the food bank that could also use those types of items? So having as many people as you can in your pocket is one of my favorite things. And then building relationships with them as so they're more willing to take your phone call. And it means something when you're like, hey, I'm just going to show up with this. People actually get excited about that instead of dreading when you come with too many apples or too many blueberries or whatever they don't want. So yeah, those are just some things that I've thought of. And then, do you guys have any questions? And here's the middle picture was of the big glean we did last year at the blueberry farm that we current harvest each year from, with y'all, or some of you.
That was awesome, Faith. And you're so organized. I love how organized you are. Thank you so much for sharing all of your ideas and tips and stuff. I love your tier system. Um, so you're just to kind of confirm there, your tier system, it's kind of prioritized by like need, and then I guess kind of like schedules kind of after that. It's like need and then schedules and then what you have if you have extra, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's all based on what the need is, and what we have and what we can ship out. And um, I think planning before is always such a key thing for us. And because we are moving so much food each year, it is definitely it's a need. And because I'm the only paid staff and everybody else is volunteer, we kind of really need, like, we're already starting to set up processes and working on things for this year, because volunteers only have so much time. And so, actually, after this meeting, I'm going to go present to them where we are at with our partners this year and what tiers they're going to be in. And do they have any questions about that? And is there anything that we can help them with that?
Um, I got a you rock Faith in the chat. I also got another question. Do you ever hold an open call to the community if you have way too much of something?
Yes, we have done that before. And sometimes it depends on what it is. Um, we typically plant, sometimes in the farming, we plant, one thing that we've done is planted over 2,000 tomato plants because tomatoes never show up to food banks looking like a tomato. They look like squash tomato over all the other food. And so it is a key thing of ours. And when we're planting the plants, we actually plant 10 to 20% more than we actually need because plants don't always make it. Every year, our onions are suck. We have 40,000 the last few years. We plant about 40,000 seeds and we end up buying some usually because things don't go great, but we always plant extras. And so we've been like, oh, wow, we have 300 extra tomato plants, or oh, wow, we have, this many pounds left over. Yes, we like anybody in the community need these. Some of the people are like, we'll reach out to our local master gardeners or we'll reach out to just different random people and do that. Most of what we do though is through our partners. But um, I put myself in a lot of places and show up to a lot of meetings. Sometimes just to be like, I'm here if you need anything, or hey, if you ever need food or you're looking to connect with someone, like I want to connect with you. And I think my big thing that I've been trying to do is just to get to know as many people as I can. I mean, that's how this huge postal worker drive thing got put in my lap was, oh, oh, I could never do that, but hey, I know someone that could. And then I got the phone call on a Saturday afternoon. Could you sort 70,000 pounds for us? And I was blown away, but then we figured it out. And so, yeah, we have done an open community call thing. We've done when we have too much on the field, we'll like be like all of our volunteers like take home as much as you can. Do you know anybody? During COVID, we would make up vegetable boxes and do like drive-through pickups just because during COVID, I felt like there was so much food everywhere. Everybody was a food bank, I feel like. And so we did that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Are there any other questions?
Awesome. I think you're quite thorough. And I love how, like, as you were presenting things, I was like, well, how does this? And then you answered it. So I think that's probably where we're all at on that too.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And you
I-
guys, thank you for coming. Sorry, Amanda, did you have something?
Oh, I have a question, Faith.
Yes.
This is Amanda from Orcas Island. We've met a couple times.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, would you ever consider donating to the San Juans?
Maybe we definitely could have that conversation. My thing is always like, let's chat and see where we
Overlap.
can meet. And then with this new tiered thing, and I've told most of our partners this year, because now it's in writing, and this year I'm kind of taking a big year of like, okay, I mean, I've been asking myself really big questions. I think year to year up until now, it's been like, oh, these are the people we're working with. We're going to keep working with them. And I think the need in Whatcom County and in this area is changing so quickly that this year I'm like, I actually in my partner tiers, I only placed less than half of our partners, and the other half I'm like, we're going to base it off of this year's, conversations and figure out, um, if it makes sense for us to continue having them at the same level we've had them. There's a couple local groups that we just had. I mean, this was our largest year we've ever grown. And so we had a lot of extra produce. So we were able to say yes to a lot of different things. And maybe we won't do that again this year. So yeah, definitely. Why don't you email me? I can put my email in the chat and then we can definitely set something up to chat and see what we can do.
Great. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Hey, Faith. Whoops. Hey, Faith. This is
Hey.
David. Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, And I know this is a little off topic in terms of distribution, but do you have like, are there additional inputs that would help you to do more as an organization, whether it's funding at the beginning of the season or things that you're going to be planting or others? Because I know, like talking with Mike at Bellingham Food Bank, the need is tremendous up in Whatcom County. So are you limited by the inputs that you have available to you for the current, like this season, or are you at capacity, basically?
So the crazy thing is we have tons of land, which this year the owner of the land that we farm is completely donated. All the water and electricity have been donated for many years. The man that owns the land actually passed away in September of last year. And so we've there like everybody's committed to make this happen, but there is a question mark on like how is this going to play out? I mean, we don't really know. We're honestly not worried about it at all. So please don't panic about us up here. We're totally good. I've honestly had, I don't know, 10 to 15 other offers of land in the last few years. And so we're just like letting God guide us wherever he takes us. But we really hope it's where we're at because we love it there. And so we have more land we could farm technically. I mean, we're honestly 1,000% capped by our volunteer capacity. Like we're reaching out to different organizations. I think last year we had over, I think 800 or 900 people come out to the farm at one time or another. Our core group is about, we call what our core crew is anyone that works 50 or more hours in the year. And so it's actually grew by like almost 8 people last year. So we're up to about 30 of those people, and they're the ones, they do 95% of the work. And so really, I mean, we've gained some of those, so hopefully that continues to grow. But it's really all because it is volunteer based. We had thought about getting a couple of AmeriCorps members at one point, but because we are faith based and that is such an important part of us, we can't. So kind of that's really what we're capped at is our volunteer capacity. Because really I could probably make anything else happen.
No doubt whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, we could. My goal and what would make me the happiest person is if literally we had to do multiple routes every day with our van. We currently are driving it 6 days a week, but hey, let's do it 12. Like, I don't know, like how many times can we fill it in a week and get food out there? And so that is kind of where we're at. I would love to see if there's one piece that I haven't been able to put a lot of time into is seeing if there's businesses that want to donate more. But there are other local organizations that are doing that and using that food in different ways. And so that's totally fine. But yeah.
And so distribution, your van is able to keep up with the distribution that you have, or do you have instances where, gosh, it would be great if we could just double our distribution capacity?
No, our van holds quite a bit of food. We've packed it full of like 4,000 pounds before. Whether that's great for the shocks or not, we don't know, but we're just letting it go. And so our van is great. And we actually have a secondary van that we can pull in if we need to. It's our church van that our maintenance teams use. But in weeks where we have a little bit of a crazier thing or we have a one-off project, we do definitely call that van in. But yeah, we have drivers. Like that's the thing is we're completely funded by our congregation, which is crazy. And they're super generous. And I've thought often like, is it worth going for a grant or whatever? But it's literally our thing as volunteers. And so we're slowly getting more, like we recently had a few new churches reach out to us who are interested, but it sounds more like one-off things than long-term, which is really what we need is just people to be there a lot, which is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I know we're at time, Sarah. I will shut up. But Faith, I may circle back with you on a couple of thoughts.
Awesome. I'd love that.
Sarah, you are.
Nope. There we go. Thank you guys so much for coming. And it was a wonderful Faith. Thank you so much for sharing. It was really great to see all your organization and everything. And yeah, have a great, wonderful time, you guys. And I'll be sending out the invite for the next month's meeting here fairly soon. Have a great rest of your day, guys.
And if anybody has any questions, I'm always available by email. And if you didn't write it down, Sarah or David can get you a hold of me.
In the chat. In the chat. And you
Yeah.
can let me know if you need it. Bye, everybody.